Hello everyone and welcome to day 8 of Preptober. Today I'm here to talk about accountability buddies and stamp sheets, or sort of different trackers you can use throughout the month if you're a little extra. Now, I haven't really touched on accountability buddies before. I mentioned early on to announce your project to people around you so that they can check in and see how you're doing and hopefully, motivate you to get more writing done. However, I also think that accountability buddies is a good idea, and they sort of go hand in hand, but I'm going to expand on this just a little further. So for me, accountability buddies don't have to be other writers, even though I do think that helps if there are other participants in NaNoWriMo who you can see who you're buddies with, and you can see their stats changing throughout the month. For me, that really helps because that gives me something to sort of chase after. I have a couple people on my list of buddies who are always just that one step ahead of me, or we're pretty much neck to neck. And seeing that they're only 500 words ahead of me or only 600 words behind me gives me that sort of push to get ahead. And I do believe that I work the same way for other people. I know those friends who are neck and neck with me or just right ahead or right after. We tend to have that sort of collective mindset of pushing ourselves to try to better the other people in terms of words. So to me, accountability buddies are really great to have, but the question is, where do you find them? Now, I talked about having people in my buddy list on the Nano forums, and at least the way the site has worked up until now, I haven't actually checked it out yet this year, but you can add anyone to your buddy list. At least in the past, there hasn't been a sort of approval thing. You don't have to approve anyone asking to be your buddy, which I kind of hope to do implement, but that's a different story. But you can add pretty much anyone. However, I do find it extra good if it's someone you sort of know a little bit. But you don't have to find these people on the Nano site. It can be friends in real life, it can be parents or siblings or people you know on Twitter or YouTube. And either both of you just tracking how the other person is doing and checking in, or if they're non-writers, have them check in on you. Ask them now in October to check in with you in November and ask how you're doing. Like I talked about in the first video, that can be a little stressful, especially if you feel like you're falling behind and you're not doing as well as you would have liked to. It can be a bit stressful to have someone go, "Hey, how's the writing going? Hey, how's the writing going?" every time you see them. But it can also work to actually motivate you to write so that you can talk to them. And I also find that it helps if your accountability buddy is someone you can talk writing with. This isn't a necessity, but it's always nice to have someone you can bounce ideas off of. Another thing I think is important to do now in October is tell your accountability buddies how stern you want them to be, and maybe also how often you want them to check in. Because some people really benefit from someone being stern, someone who can give them a bit of tough love and be like, "Well, why haven't you written? Shouldn't you write more?" Whereas other people don't really do well with that approach and would much rather have someone be, "Okay, but maybe try to write some tomorrow." These are two very different approaches that an accountability buddy or person checking in can have. And I think it's good to try to establish that ahead of time, what you think you want and what you think you need. And this might differ at different parts of the month. You might in the beginning be totally fine with someone being really stern with you and telling you to just sit your ass down and write. But then later in the month, you might need the sort of sympathy and the "I know it's hard, here's a piece of chocolate, try again tomorrow" type of approach. And so this might not be something you can totally cement now in October and be like, "I want you to check in 6 times a day at these hours and be super hard on me." That may change during the course of the month. But I think it's good to have that conversation so that you don't go into this expecting someone who will check in 6 times a day and be almost rude to you if you haven't written, and they think they can check in twice in the month and be super nice about it. At the end of the day though, you're the only one responsible for you actually sitting down to write, but it's good to have that external push or that external check sometimes, at least in my opinion, at least for me. Now moving on to what I like to call stamp sheets, otherwise known as trackers. There are a few different versions of this. If you've been on the Nano site before, you know that you track your words there. You tell the site how many words you've written today and you can see your graph growing. This is great and it's a great place to have it, but if you want to be a little extra and do a little bit more than that, you can always make your own tracker sheet as well, especially perhaps if your goal doesn't align with the Nano one. So if it is anything other than 50k, it can be really good to make your own as well and track your words that way. Now I'm going to put some pictures on the screen about what these may look like and how you can just track them. And Marcus and I have some little rubber stamps that we like to use to track our writing that way, which that's unnecessary. You could just tick a box instead or fill it in or whatever else. And these can be digital or they can be printed, but it can be a little fun to have and to track your own words in your own way outside of the Nano page. And especially if you don't have access to the site for a few days, say you're away camping in the woods and you have your computer or your notebook or whatever else you're writing in, but you can't access the internet and update your progress, it can be good to track it somewhere else instead and then just put that in on the site after the fact, which is another tip, because you can actually go in and edit your word count after the fact. You can go in and edit previous days. So if you couldn't sign in one day because your internet connection was down or you weren't home or there were problems with the site, you can go in and edit your word count after the fact. I've said after the fact 3 times now. Anyway, that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below how preparing for Nano is going for you, if you are preparing at all, or if you're just watching these videos because you want to, in which case, thank you. I'll be back with another video tomorrow, so I will see you then. Bye!